Welcome back, gardeners. Lindsay here with the Mindful Living Movement. Today we're talking about tomato trellising, but specifically a string line type trellis. So if this is something that is new to you, I'm going to show you exactly how I made it, sort of give you some options to put it together. But the reason that I have gone with this here is I'm a small space gardener in the sense that I'm growing in raised beds, sort of flower bed style beds. And my son is a little bit tricky within my yard between the house and fence and trees and bushes and stuff like that. So I have a little bit limited in my maximum sort of sunny spaces. And so this is something I'm really excited about because it allows me to get a lot of tomatoes into pretty small space. I'm really pushing things here with how I have it set up. I've got the ability to get lots of sun still on the plants and also lots of air and breathing room around the plants. I'm also not dealing with tomato cages and having to weed around tomato cages. When you're growing indeterminate tomatoes specifically, which most of these are, indeterminate tomatoes get to be like 6 or 7 feet tall. So the tomato cage is only going to help it for so long, and then after that I need something else to support it with. And normally what I use is just big metal cattle panels, and then I train them up that. But there's only so many plants that you can get against that, because I would have to attach it to the fence or to stakes or whatever, and I wouldn't be able to have the same as what I've got going on here. Currently in this space along the back here, I have zigzagged 19 different tomato plants, which is pretty crazy. I'm going to give you a close look at sort of how they're set up and why this is so fabulous, at least for my garden here, and how you can kind of make this happen in your own space. So the first thing that you would need in order to make a string line trellis work is some sort of structure to drop your strings off of. This is a little bit of an unusual one in the sense that we have kind of piggybacked off of the fence and sort of created almost like a pergola type effect, sort of cantilevered it over the garden that I can drop the strings down onto. You definitely don't need to go with anything quite this elaborate. If you are growing, maybe down in just a regular standard garden bed, just some simple T-posts with, maybe some metal conduit across the middle, or using like 3 like 2x4s, make a T and then run a 2x4 across the top, across, wherever you're growing. That would work amazing. Just a simple sort of frame that way. It does not have to be complicated by any stretch. You do need a little bit of sturdiness because these tomato plants will have a fair bit of weight, and you don't want the wind to sort of like knock it over, anything like that. But what I have done here is there's 2 rows happening, so that I've got essentially 2 rows of tomatoes growing across the back of my bed right now. And in future seasons, because I do practice crop rotation, I can do the exact same thing with cucumbers, with squash, beans, peas. There's a lot that I can make happen within this. I could drop a whole net down from this if I wanted to, if I was doing like peas or something. So it's very versatile. You can, if you're not doing something permanent like this in one spot, your little sort of T-post setup that you can move, you can take it around your garden to different spaces if you want to. And yeah, it's kind of fun. There's a lot of things that you can trellis, not just tomatoes, but I'm going to share with you tomatoes today. Now, this string, this rope here is just a really heavy duty twine that I am using, something that I know is going to be able to bear the weight of the plants, and particularly if things get really, really windy, I know that it's going to be able to support it and withstand a little bit of, pressure. But you can use anything that you've got available to you. I didn't go with a super fine twine. I went with something a little bit on the sturdier side, just because I know we get some pretty crazy winds. The back of our yard is wide open almost, so there's a lot that they have to withstand sometimes. So here's a closer look. You can see the strings all reaching up from each of the tomatoes, and they're sort of going along in that zigzag type pattern so that I could really take advantage of all of the space. Now, closer inspection here, you can see that I have gently knotted it around the base of the plant. I've left one big stem along the bottom there so that it can anchor itself. And then the string, I've gently wrapped all the way up and around. And that's just going to continue as the plant grows. I'm just going to softly keep twining it around the string so that it has all the support that it needs. And you can see even with a little bit of play in the wind, it can kind of move, but it's not super loosey-goosey and falling all over the place. So here's another close look. So we can see I've left the knots quite loose on these on the bottom in the sense that they're not like super tight around because the stem of the plant is going to expand as it grows. And then we can see as it slowly moves its way all the way up. So the knots that I've got up on the top here, I have sort of looped in a way that I can slide these over if I need to give a plant a little bit more space, a little bit more breathing room. I've just given myself a bit of flexibility in that sense. And these strings I've also tied so that this knot slides up and down just a little bit so that I can loosen it if I need to. And then I can take it, twirl it around the plant, and then cinch it tight at the top again to get that tension back in it, and just give me a little bit of sort of flexibility that it's not super set, that I can kind of move it around and adjust it as I might need. Now, an important thing to note here is I have removed all of the bottom stems before I tied it so that there is lots of breathing room for the plant away from the soil. And it did take a little while, so I didn't start these guys on their stringline trellis until they reached pretty close to the size that you're seeing here. These have only been on the trellis for about a week because I needed the plant to be in a way that I could remove all of that I could give it, you know, lots of space below the bottom stem without taking half the plant off. So it took a little while. You know, obviously you've got to wait a little bit. But now they're fully secure. I kind of waited until they were sort of falling over, and a couple of them were actually leaning against the fence in the back before I went and did this so that they can breathe, so that there's not any moisture splashing up against the soil, and that they are happy as they grow. Now, for this to be something that's really successful, you do need to keep the energy and the focus on the main stem of the plant so that you can actually get it to climb up one main stem. So that means that all the little suckers, the little guys, so this, for example, right here, we might be able to see right in the corner of this little stem right there. This is growing out of its armpit. And that I need to get off of there. So we can see kind of right here, and I'm just going to pinch and remove so that it stays going up that one main stem. So all the little armpit guys, all these little suckers that are going to inevitably sprout, even here's a teeny tiny little guy right in the middle there. So pick that guy off, and that's what we're gonna do as they keep on growing. So that is it for my tomato stringline trellis. It's so simple, so easy, and I'm really, really excited to keep using this throughout my garden wherever my tomatoes move to, because I really love that I can just easily weed around everything without having to deal with tomato cages. I can just get my little tool in and around everything. Also, it was so easy to set up. Once your structure is either like permanently like this one in one place, or you've just got your post with whatever cross piece that you can sort of move around wherever you need it, it's like the easiest thing ever to set up. As I mentioned, I only just trellised these guys about a week ago. You do need to wait for them to get to a point where you can clear out all those lower leaves, because you don't want anything to be leaves sitting on the dirt and stuff like that. That just promotes sort of fungal issues, and tomatoes are sort of one of those plants that you got to be careful with. But I've got a lot of plants here in this tiny little space, and as long as they keep training straight upwards and I remove all those little suckers, they're not going to bush out. They're going to continue to vine, which is going to help me to grow a lot in a small space and take advantage of height versus having them to bush out. Not having to have big cattle panels along the back, which obviously limit me. I can get more sun around my plants is the other thing that I'm really excited about, because my sun sort of sweeps around the back side of this fence, and eventually if I have things too close to the fence, i.e. if I had a proper trellis at the back of the fence, they wouldn't get the sun that I need. So with this, it pulls them away, and so when the sun is at its highest, it's shooting down on the top of them, which is ideal. That's what I need, as much sun as I possibly can get in my tomatoes, because I'm contending with a lot of obstacles that get in the way. So it's been a win-win for a lot of reasons. If you are sort of trying to figure out what to do with your tomatoes and you haven't trellised them yet in the year, this is something I would very highly recommend doing. Indeterminate tomatoes specifically, because they are the guys that get ginormous. If you're growing dwarf tomato plants, container tomato plants, things like that, that stay in that little bush size, you won't need to worry about this. Those guys are meant to stay nice and small and not have to deal with big trellises and stuff like that. But if you are growing an indeterminate variety, or you're not sure what the heck that even means, if you know the variety you're growing, say like Big Roma, or I don't know, like a cherry tomato, like whatever the specific variety is that you're growing, just do a quick Google search. Is it indeterminate or determinate? And determinate means they stay a determined size. Indeterminate means they're just going to keep growing and growing and growing, basically until the end of the season. So they'll get real big before that happens if you have a nice long season. I wish you all the best with your tomatoes and your stringline trellis. Please let me know if you have any questions. I am here for you. Have a beautiful rest of your day, gardeners, and we will see you again soon.